world by looking at key teams and bots. Each episode focusing on a record of a notable team from the show's history. Today, I'm your host, Toon Ganondorf, and I am joined by my two guests.
It's me. I'm in as always. Mic issues as always, holding up. I've got to keep that meme going. And a lovely hello without Luke here as our main guest.
Hello, my name's Theo, and I'll be a guest for this episode, and hopefully some other episodes.
Fantastic. So today we are talking about Mace, Mace 2, and Gemini. We are going to try and move at a faster pace this week than some of our previous episodes. So we're going to cut straight to the chase, and we're going to start talking about Mace, which had two iterations. Mace entered in Series 2, and Mace 2 entered into Series 3. Now, each robot was essentially the same robot. They were box wedges with lifting/flipping arms, and both of them were semi-finalists. Nick, do you want to discuss some information about Mace?
In terms of its design, are you looking for?
Yeah, let's go with that, and then we'll move on to its performance.
Okay, well, Mace is one of the more logically designed robots from the early series. Instead of having quite an unbalanced wheelie style that a lot of machines had, Mace is this low, boxed-in robot that never really goes off balance. It has this nice back thing as well that keeps it stable from being flipped, and its front is also long with that lifting arm. It's compactness put together to make it balanced, controlled, and maneuverable, and it shows in its performances where it's a consistently solid machine, as we'll get to see.
Theo, anything to add?
Going on that, it's much more stable design than a lot of the others you see in Series 2. It's a square-based shape, the way it can lean on the flipper arm. Overall, it's much more maneuverable and a safer design than a lot of others.
It certainly had a bit more bulk to it and a bit more build strength, which was certainly helpful. And as some of the design features, I think we mentioned a couple of months ago in the Chaos the Bruce podcast with Mace's angled flail frame, which essentially prevented it from being flipped, head over heels from the front, because it would land on that. The similar design that Eruption perfected in the reboot, which was quite an advanced series, considering the only flipper at that point in history was Recyclops. Quite a bit of foresight, quite ahead of its time. Now, Mace was the all-star, for lack of a better word, of Heat B of Series 2, along with Chaos. They were the two big guns. We are going to try and avoid doubling up wherever we can on the Chaos, because we've discussed that fairly in depth on previous podcasts. But we might just summarise Mace's fairly dominant heat with just a couple of highlights.
Yeah, the Gauntlet is the most Mace-esque thing we could ever see from its first ever performance. It's a nice solid run, gets its way over the ramp, runs into the house robots, shows some good strength, holds them off, and gets to the end zone. Rather amusing fact in the Gauntlet also is Kill-A-Lot, shout out to him, trying to lift up the arena wall. And Sergeant Bash breaks the arena wall in the middle. So Mace outdoing the house robots there. And it starts its way towards a nice trundling heat victory where it shows it's just that bit more controlled and stable than the opponent it will eventually beat in the heat final.
Absolutely. The tug of war, I believe it came second. Did Chaos win that one?
Yeah, Chaos pulled Dead Metal in, as Jonathan famously pointed out. Mace gets second, does as you expect. It holds Dead Metal. It's a literal standstill for most of it. But no, the tug of war itself, I'd just like to quickly have a little view over, because Series 2 was one where I always rewatched it as a child, and I always had some kind of attachment to it, even though I never watched it live because I was too young. And the tug of war is one of those typical events that sucked me in. The camera work, especially. You see, it's very zoomed in. You can see the tension being strained on the chain, the actual rope, shall we say, that holds the two machines together. And especially when Dead Metal falls in against Chaos, the plume of smoke that covers the camera's face, it's very atmospheric, but yeah, it's part of what makes Series 2 great, and luckily for Mace, it's all part of that ride, isn't it?
I'd say one thing I liked about Series 2 is that it kept a lot of its it kept a lot of its 1995, 6, 7 Robot Wars roots. It was nice to see all the classic touches.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a little bit gladiatorial.
Exactly.
And I do like the tug of war a lot more than the sumo basho. If you have to compare Mace and Leviathan dragging Dead Metal, compare that with Exterminator and Behemoth hoisting Shunt, which one's more enjoyable? Well, I think the tug of war is a lot more enjoyable.
Well, exactly. I mean,
tug back and forth, whereas the one they were pushing into each other was like an immovable force, an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what I always enjoy about Series 2's trials. They really bring in more variety, where Sumo Basho is the most robot combat thing ever. You expect your robot to be able to push. Do you expect it to outpull a house robot? Not necessarily. It can expose design flaws if you're unbalanced, or if you don't have a rear caster. It allows little inventions like a killdozer to dig into the arena floor, and was it GBH? It just offers a bit more variety and versatility, and it's a great little event to have in the show. It's a shame they scrapped it. They didn't have it as like a throwaway thing in Series 4 or whatever. It's only lasted one series.
The ones that, the Sumo Basho was probably the one that I didn't need so much. I would have rather than keep the Joust or the King of the Castle, especially.
Yeah.
It would have been a lot. Like, imagine that in the reboot. Imagine seeing, someone like Carbide may kill everything in the fight, but you put that against two house robots, it's not going to win King of the Castle.
No.
Whereas, something else that's a lot less competitive might have a better chance because they might be better designed for it. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, but I'm sure that there are. Take Coyote for example, or even Traction. Who knows how some of those kinds of robots would do?
Yeah, more holding their own in the center of the arena than doing anything explosive. It suits different types of robots, so it's
very much so.
Yeah, it's all about that versatility factor, as JP would probably say.
JP says anything that ends in ility.
Yeah.
But anyway. Back to Mace, we get two pretty Mace-style victories. We've talked about the Heat final. The Leviathan battle, really the most remarkable thing about it is we get to see the signature Mace in Mace give some damage, dislodges with the flail at the back of the robot, and Mace edges a judge's decision. Not much more to say.
It was honestly a shame Leviathan didn't do better. It was a really good-looking robot.
I do, that's what's down in my notes. I do like Leviathan's look, and I don't know if you guys remember Matchbox cars, like Hot Wheels in a way, but with different vehicles. Yeah, Leviathan reminds me of one of those things. Just a little toy that would be condensed into this wedge-type shape thing that you'd kick around in your garden or crash into other cars. It's a really sleek, industrial type looking robot, and yeah, as you say, it's a shame it didn't really have at least one type of opponent in the arena in combat that it could maybe do something against, because it's not terrible.
Yeah, you're right. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the Heat. Series 2 semi-final, just as a wrapping up on Mace 1.
Yeah, obviously the main thing with this is the race off with Panic Attack. It's easy to focus on the race off itself. We know Team Mace bottled it. They picked the wrong route. We don't know why, but what makes it even more incredible is the fact that obviously they'd already run the gauntlet once in this semi-final. They'd already faced the Sentinel once in this semi-final. They'd already turned away from the Sentinel when they couldn't get past it. And they already had got successfully over the other ramp. It just makes their decision to go for that route in the race-off even more strange.
Yeah.
Didn't Derek Foxwell toss a coin at the start?
Yeah, he tossed the coin, and as far as we know, Team Mace won the coin toss. That's what JP told us anyway, so maybe not too reliable, the information there. But
That's very flexing. Well, the saddest part about that is Mace was one of the best robots in the semi-final. I mean, look at the two robots that came first and second were Napalm and Kilotron. So they were probably the least competitive in the combat stages, whereas Mace and Panic Attack were two of the more competitive in the combat. Because we've seen by now, can you think of any other Series 2 semi-finalists who had as dominant a combat performance as Mace did? Like, GBH did.
No, Mace is brilliant.
Mace was one of the most. GBH was highly dominant, but Cassius was sort of... Not that Cassius wasn't as good as...
No, but Cassius strolled through. It didn't show itself off at its full potential.
Got a free pass in the final and against Onslaught. Lots of things, lots of factors like that. Whereas Mace was clearly the best. So it's such a shame, and you really wonder, had Mace gotten through here at the expense of Panic Attack, of course, instantly we've got a different champion because we lose the eventual champion. How does Mace rank in Series 2?
Yes. A very, very good question, and one that was relevant on the wiki recently, actually, because we've been doing the rank down of the best machines in each series. And Mr. Ganondorf here has led into this one because I, rather boisterously, maybe stupidly, put Mace as the best machine in Series 2 for my list. I wouldn't necessarily say Mace is the outright best in terms of quality, but I think it's the most versatile out of all of the all-stars in Series 2. Like, if you put all of the all-stars in Series 2 into a round-robin setup or something, I think Mace could probably come out with the most wins.
I agree. Absolutely.
It's certainly one of the more reliable robots.
Yeah, exactly. It's reliable, it's balanced, it's well controlled.
And for Series 2, if you're reliable, you've basically won the competition.
Yeah, you're basically in the semi-final stage. Just ask Napalm.
Yeah. It's got one of the better weapons in Series 2 as well. I mean, really, you've got Kilotron's axe, Cassius's flipper, GBH's scoop, and then Mace's flipper. That's really it.
I mean, you think of the other robots, even the ones in the grand final. Panic Attack is vulnerable to axes, especially. Roadblock is rather sluggish and wide. It's brilliantly controlled, but you think one or two machines could give it a run for its money, like King Buxton did. Cassius, it's an innovative machine, but it's not precision milled or anything. It's
been driven like a,
Yeah, it's driven like your son's just got a new remote controlled toy and he just wants to muck about with it in the garden. Rex Garrod doesn't give a crap at all.
He's not the best driver in the
started that and I had nowhere to go with it. I'll do better. But do it round robin. Let's just go now. I'll read out. Let's
boy.
Go yes, no to the victory.
Oh
right,
boy.
Got it? So Mace v Napalm. Win?
Yeah.
Yes. Mace v Mortis.
No.
I think I'd back Mace on that. Mortis is a good machine, but it's strange because it's less precise with its front wedge than it was in Series 1, so I think Mace can control that one.
You see, I'm not sure. It's got. I mean, I'm not sure about that aluminium armor.
Yeah, that could be a fight where Mortis's axe takes over.
The flipper's going to do nothing because if Chaos couldn't do it, Mortis could. But does Mortis have a lifter in Series 2? Am I remembering that right?
No, just axe.
So it's just the axe. Yeah. Maybe I'll switch. Maybe I'll go to Mortis. Okay, Behemoth.
Good fight. But Behemoth is basically the refrigerator Mace. It's just more narrow, more easy to topple. So I'd say Mace has the edge there.
Absolutely, yeah, I was about to say the same. I didn't understand what
Yeah,
you meant by
Mace.
refrigerator Mace, but yes, definitely. Killatron. I'd give that to Killatron, I think.
Mace, without a doubt.
I don't know. That's great, isn't it? One goes Killatron, one goes Mace, no doubt, and I bottle it. I think it's one of those where Killatron's either going to knock the Link out with a good hit, or it's going to get bundled around the arena for the whole fight. And I think either of them could happen.
The point out is that Mace cannot do anything to Killatron, because Killatron cannot be flipped over.
Don't forget, though, I mean, Behemoth couldn't do anything to Inquisitor or Elvis, but it got them in the PPZ, and that was it.
That's true.
True.
I feel pretty confident in Killatron, but we'll keep it brief. Panic Attack in a fight.
Oh, I think Panic Attack.
Panic Attack.
Bit more explosive. Its bad armor isn't going to affect it in that one.
It's more naturally designed for pushing as well.
I think Panic Attack can easily get underneath it, and then once it's got a small lift, it's plain sailing from there.
Yeah. Roadblock.
Mace.
Yeah, I reckon Mace.
Roadblock.
It'd be kind of a combination of Roadblock v Onslaught
Yes.
and Roadblock v Kilohertz. You know, they're both sort of low down, similarly shaped, similarly designed robots that Roadblock beat both of them, but you just never know. Maybe I will go Roadblock.
They're both going to have good spells of the fight.
My head says Mace, but my heart says Roadblock. I don't know which to pick. I'm going to defer on that one.
Yeah, same.
Alright. Cassius.
Mace.
I'm going to go Mace.
Cassius.
King Buxton.
Good fight. Very.
Yeah, it would be very good. I would go with King Buxton, but only just.
Mace.
I'll go with Mace.
Mace's reliability to pull it through, just.
I think Mace has an able lifter. I think in Series 2, King Buxton's Fox didn't do much.
GBH?
Mace.
Mace.
I reckon GBH.
I think GBH is just a less robust Mace in a way, but it's a bit more of a viable scoop, so I see the reasoning.
Yeah, I feel... How fast is GBH?
We can't tell. It didn't need to move to beat its opponents.
Yeah. If GBH is slow, and I don't have the time to sort of check it out,
No.
I'll clarify my answer. If GBH is anything above slow, I will give it to GBH, but if GBH is as slow as I think it is from vague memory, I'll give it to Mace. Because if GBH is slow, Mace is never going to be in a position where it'll be flipped. Plunderbird, that's Mace, for sure.
Yeah, Mace.
Yeah, Mace to go. So, by virtue of that, I think we only had one unanimous loss for Mace, didn't we? And that was to Panic Attack.
Probably, yeah. I think that was the only one. There might have been another one that sneaked in there, but nothing major.
Interesting to show that, you know, by that logic, Mace is easily a top 4, certainly a top 8 contender.
Yeah.
For the top 16, which it was.
Definitely got potential.
I want to mention another thing I want to ask just before we move on to Mace 2. Do you guys really think that Mace and Panic Attack tied for distance?
No.
Or do you reckon they said they're within a meter? Let's just tell everybody they did to add, you know, a little bit more drama.
They did have a far out shot which tried to say, yeah, they're both definitely equal, but there's going to be surely one little bit in it.
Yeah.
You've got to say that's for TV's sake, and I don't blame them. It's great. I love the race-off. It is fantastic.
Yeah. It's a little bit of notable extra stuff.
Exactly. And I wouldn't trade that for 1 millimeter of accuracy on the ruler.
Yeah. Although, yeah, exactly. And I'd rather have one of those two robots eliminated by a race-off rather than them just saying, okay, you lose one of them because it got a little bit less far along.
I think the first couple of series are just special. Like, they could get away with so much shit.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if they reinstated, like, Mortis into the grand final and said that Panic Attack of the Rep would be broken down, I wouldn't have put it past them. It's series 1 to 2. You can include 3 in that.
I mean, this is the same show that literally had to decide the snooker between a robot that broke it down and a robot that couldn't move. They had to say, they just lie through their teeth. Oh yeah, Dreadnought was more active. No, it wasn't.
Oh dear.
We've just had word that You Pat the Mouse is irreparably broken down.
Oh boy.
Yeah, exactly. Alright, let's talk about Mace 2. Mace 2, which essentially subbed out the yellow checks for the red checks. And I think the flipper gained a bit more of a kick to it. It was a bit more of a lifter in the first series, but now it was a bit more of a flipper.
Didn't it become pneumatic?
Yeah, a bit more pneumatic.
Yeah, I think that's right.
It's really interesting to see that Mace is notable for a couple of reasons. One, it's the only semi-finalist from Series 2 that improved its performance. Every single other one did worse.
What a
From Panic Attack to Cassius, all the way down to Plunderbird, like, they all did worse except for Mace 2. The other thing that's interesting is that it has almost the exact same design compared to Chaos, who went completely different route. It's almost like Chaos and Mace were on par for their time, and then you skip a year later and Chaos 2 is 3 years ahead of its time, whereas Mace 2 is about appropriate for its time, which I think is interesting.
Yeah. Mace, that stat that you just said about the semi-finalist retaining its performance there, or actually improving because it got to the second round of the semis, it just proves that Mace is the typical up there with the top of its time type robot. Its design, its fundamentals will always make it a good machine. You never don't think it will. You always know you're going to at least get a solid performance out of it, whether it wins or loses. And as you say, these little improvements it's seemingly made just keeps it ticking along and keeps it really competitive. And yeah, Chaos 2 sadly overshadows it in Series 3, but hey, Mace ended up being competitive against it, even in a form where it was outclassed, so fair play.
So interestingly, as is widely sort of held, it has one of possibly the worst season openers of Series 3. You pit one of the worst performing semi-finalists is the returning All-Star with almost the exact same robot, and they've got a new flipper, and you stick them against 3 invertible axle bots / track bots. It's a completely perplexing season opener. But, Mace, they do a fairly decent effort of trying to make it entertaining.
I mean, what was Stinger in that battle?
Well, that's right. It was a chuckle.
Yeah. I don't get this. I don't get why Series 3 Heat is this. As you just said, it's a completely it's a completely strange lineup of robots. Mace is a good control bot that's gonna grind out fights. That doesn't necessarily make them entertaining. So why are you putting them against robots that it can only pit? And then why close the pit for the Heat final as well, just to sum up the lack of kill potential that there is in the fight. It's as bland as it is average, and that's not a great thing for a season opener as a whole.
No, it's almost like they looked at Series 2, which was the highest rated series that Robot Wars has ever had, because the reboot couldn't come close because of the nature of streaming and all that stuff that wasn't around back then. Series 2 had this enormous grand final rating, and they said, great, let's do everything Series 2 did, but more. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the worst heat and put it at the start, just like Series 2 did.
Oh man, imagine if Series 3 opened with one of the legends. If we open with the champion...
Hypnodisc from the first episode.
Exactly. Imagine Hypnodisc, Chaos 2, or Panic Attack opening up the entire series. That would have just completely built the momentum for the show. But instead, you just say, let's play it safe. let's chuck in robots that won't give us limp breakdowns, but they'll still be boring fights. Just because it's the most halfway through the series heat of all time, but they put it first, and I don't get why.
And that brings us to Wheelie Wacko.
That pretty much is everything that there is to say about the entire heat, actually.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Suicidal Tendencies' paint job. I want to start this now. You know, we have the Series 6 names with Infernal Contraption and Barbaric Response and all that lot. We have Raging Reality. We have here what I like to call a Series 3 paint job with predominantly red and a bit of yellow blend. You have Suicidal Tendencies in there, Exterminator, Overkill, Judge Shred, and Prize Fighter as the main ones. Lovely Series 3 paint jobs. And you also have a bit of Psycho Killer if you really want.
Yellow. I mean, even throw in Big Cheese. It's got yellow and red. You've got
as the inverted yellows, like Psycho Killer as well.
Overkill is there. Psycho Killer. You're right. There's a very red bias in Series 3, which is surprising.
I do like it.
Oh Christ! You look at Prize Fighter and you think it looks so dated, but it begs the question: was it ever in date?
It never looked it, did it? I mean, the most up to date it was putting bloody word art on the machine in Series 5. Oh dear, and that graphic of, was it a Spitfire on Polycarb? Oh, good grief. Should have gone back to the Series 3 paint job, lads. Boy, oh boy.
Even Oblivion, who's not even in the main competition, has got the same sort of colours. So funny. But yeah, so the Series 3 paint job is not enough to defeat Mace 2, who then goes through to the first round of the semi-finals, which now is combat-based purely, so no gauntlet Sentinel race-offs to bring an end to Mace's campaign. And here we are with Big Brother, which is the first kind of, the second, really, of all the future All-Stars that Mace would go on to fight. And it's pretty dominant from Mace too.
Yeah, this is a fun little fight. It reminds me of Wild Thing versus Exterminator from Series 4. It's a really solid fight with good driving to get the KO, but it's kind of just forgotten about because it's in such a solid semi-final.
Yeah. Essentially ends with Big Brother upended, and Mace 2 goes through to the top 8 where it belongs, and then, as we know, as we've discussed, we won't cover it again, loses to Chaos 2, outclassed. Chaos 2's learned from their mistakes. Mace 2 has the same design, probably because they didn't have any mistakes to lose from. That's the thing. Mace 2, its rear flail is its undoing, can't self-right, doesn't have the right body shape for it, and is eliminated in the top 8.
Rip.
Rip indeed.
That moves us on to their probably more famous but less successful little twin siblings, Gemini.
Before we get there, I'd like to just have a little word, because this will be relevant for Gemini. Mace 2 doesn't appear in any side events in Series 3. Not in the pinball, where that would have been a great pinball robot to have.
Logical choice.
And sadly, which I feel is a massive shame, it wasn't in the first World Championships either. It can represent Scotland. I don't get why it isn't there as a 2-time semi-finalist. All talk's good. It's a good machine. But I don't see why you can't put another Scottish robot in there instead. A Mace would have been a great robot to have in an already really good World Championship lineup. It would have guaranteed us some more really good fights. And it's a shame that this veteran, who's proved itself twice over, just had its run ended as a machine, because Gemini comes up straight after it with a defeat to Chaos 2. It's just kind of sad that that's it for it.
And you know what you do? You take out 101 and you make it the first round of the semi-finals is a rematch between Panic Attack and Mace 2. So that way you got the same number of English representatives, but you get an additional bit of flavour. And as a massive 101 fan, I would be happy with that compromise.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to give up 101's, lost to Razor in the top 4 if it meant that, we got a little bit more interesting of a clash, because you got talking points there.
Exactly.
I think it's very valid as a point of interest. So yeah, that's a good shout. And I mean, as we know, as you could say with literally any Series 3 robot that you like, it would have been also very good to have it in the international special, but no.
Didn't it have 4 in Series 3?
Yeah, they had a lot. Anyway, Gemini. Anyone who knows anything about the show knows about Gemini. It was the first cluster bot. It was two identically shaped, very similar to Mace. They had a lot of the elements of Mace. Not so much that you'd think they were the same, but once you realise that they're from Team Mace, it makes a lot of sense. And you spot it straight away and go, right, I see it now. They've got the front wheel casters, they've got the same kind of weapon, they've got the bulkiness to them, but they're a lot more wedge-shaped now, less box type. You can't get stranded on your back the way they did against Chaos 2. Again, showing that they learned from their previous mistakes, which is good because that's how it should always be.
Yeah, you can really see the progress they've made.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see the natural evolution from Mace 2 to Gemini.
Yeah, it's quite funny. Obviously, the comparisons to Mace are there, but essentially, we had Chaos the Bruce as a former title for our podcast. Gemini looks like 2 Chaoses, so now we've got Chaos the Juice. But these can actually self-write, thankfully. Well, for a series.
I mean, mostly.
Yeah.
We'll get on to that.
You can tell Gemini was the new thing. It was the new wave. They wanted it to be the new wave, the way that Hypnodisc and Chaos 2 and Razor were the new wave just a year or 2 previously. This is what we want. We want innovation. We want, excitement. They were hyping it way up. And it was the 8th seed. And the problem was they put it in the same heat as the future champion and completely undeniable force that was Tornado, who essentially carried Gemini through that first melee.
Yeah, I think with Tornado, I'd seriously doubt the producers knew what they were dealing with.
No.
They thought, box with a spear, right, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. You think it's just a robot that Gemini's probably just going to flip around constantly. But because Tornado's invertible, it would probably keep going. But, yeah, it kept going and more.
They probably thought it was like a new version of All Talk. They're like, oh yeah, that's good. They're like, let's put them, it'll be fun. They'll be able to flip them, and then they'll charge for Gemini. There'll be 2 of them, and it'll make for great watching. What they didn't realise is that Tornado was not All Talk. It was more akin a rhinoceros than it was to, dog. I don't know. I'm not good with the examples, but Tornado was like a rhinoceros, and it just had completely unstoppable. And Gemini got some good showcases in its heat. Don't get me wrong. Got the second out of the arena flip ever on the creature, which is one of the best looking. You can tell that they expected it to happen by the way the cameras are.
It's like Matilda after a house fire.
It's a good point. It's like it's been melted. But yeah, the way Gemini sort of slip up to that wheel and double flip, it was a beautiful thing to watch, and it was one of the most memorable for such a long time.
Yeah, you could probably argue that this is the only real time Gemini worked as a true pairing to get that Uta.
It was something beautiful to see them both flip it out.
And the bit after the fight with Julia, this is a typical Series 4 moment. Julia with the team, the little kids from both teams, right next to the creature through the polycarb walls. It's just such a Series 4 moment where you feel like you're on set at the recording and you can see the machines live and everything's happening as it's happening, and we better hook your robot out, as Julia said.
Yeah, it's what I love about Series 4 with Julia. I mean, she made everyone feel included.
Exactly, it's a very homely feel, Series 4.
Exactly.
Julia was one of my favourites. She was so much. She was like the cool aunt.
Like, honestly, I preferred her over Philippa.
Yes.
So did I, honestly. Philippa was cute, and she had such great banter, especially in Series 3, but when Philippa came back and her sort of thing changed, it made you miss Julia, who was like, well, I said it before, she was like the cool aunt who would come up to you at Christmas and ask what you got for Christmas, and then take, like, huge enthusiastic interest in your new toy. That's what Julia was like.
It really is.
Yeah. So I really like Julia. But anyway, we all know the sad saga of the Heat final, one of the most violent and brutal displays from Tornado, considering it's just a box on wheels. It's like you feel physical pain when you see that yellow spike go into the back of Gemini and it doesn't move again. It's like being stabbed in the back. It hurts to look at.
It's honestly really uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah. You do just flinch.
Especially because they make Gemini out to be like, like Gemini, they're either meant to be feminine or they're meant to be children. I can't remember which of the two.
Yeah.
They're smaller, they're lighter, and then to see Tornado, it's like watching Mike Tyson beat up a bunch of 10-year-olds. It's sad.
just chucking them wherever he wants.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm fond of our Mike Tyson references here at the Robot Wars History Podcast.
Just a little extra note on this fight. Like to give a shout out to Andrew Marchant, one of his first examples of how good a driver he is. It would be so easy for him to just consistently ram Gemini. Go in with a ram, back off, go in with a ram, back off. But instead, he focuses on one of the two and just drives it out of sight of the other one, carries it around the arena, and doesn't let the other one get a sniff of flipping it over. And then it immobilizes that one it focuses on, and that's it. He's done his job. It was fantastic piece of driving.
It's interesting, upon re-watching it, you realise that Tornado is actually defeated by the second half. But, like you say, he'd done his job. It doesn't really matter if it was defeated or not. Kind of funny that Gemini one half does better at beating Tornado than the two halves do together.
One thing about that is, I wouldn't say when Gemini's rammed into the spike is upsetting. It's more when its brother tries to desperately ram it free.
Oh yeah, the limpest flip.
I think it does get freed at the end.
Yeah.
But then just no movement. It's so
straight punched a battery or something.
Rip in pieces of a Gemini.
Gemini. Okay, now this is the point where my sympathy for Gemini runs out. This is what we call the overexposure of Gemini in the second half of Series 4. It's I said at the start of the Series 4 part that Gemini was encouraged to be this new wave, and that was fine, but the problem is the show gave it so much. And for me, if you want to reward the innovation of Gemini, you either give it one thing. Like, Hypnodisc got one thing, that was the most original entry. They didn't give it a crappy side tournament that was rigged for it. They didn't give it, every award. They gave it one. Gemini won 2 awards and was given a free pass tournament in the Pinball Warrior. Now, I would be fine with them winning the Pinball Warrior if they didn't win both awards. Or I'd be fine with them winning 1 or even maybe 2 awards if they didn't also win the Pinball Warrior. Give them one of those 2. Don't give them both. It's too much.
Yeah. We already know that Gemini is an innovative machine. I mean, we get a bloody replay of it splitting after 1 second in the melee. You don't need to give it that much more hype, lads. As you say, you can give it an award, or you can give it the pinball. That pinball is a farce, but you can give it something.
It wouldn't be as much of a farce if Gemini didn't win the prize. That's my contention.
Yeah, exactly.
The Pinball Warrior tournament, it'd be like, oh, it's pretty funny. Spawn of Scudder, they did such a good job, but they couldn't beat Gemini. Whereas now, when you realise Gemini wins 2 awards as well, it's like, okay, the show wanted Gemini to win everything. Like, you could disguise the intention if they didn't give them the awards as well, is what I'm sort of trying to say.
Yeah, exactly.
If I had to pick between them, I'd take away the Pinball Warrior and give them the awards because I want Spawn and Scudder to win it, because it only gets 10 points less by itself than against two robots doing the same amount of time. But
Spawn of Scudder was overlooked completely.
Yeah.
there's no denying that Gemini was the most original entry in Series 4. Like, no one else was doing that. I mean, who else was nominated for most original in Series 4?
That's a good question.
The creature was designed. That wasn't it. Was Pussycat or Stinger?
Pussycat, Robo Chicken, and something, I believe. Not entirely sure.
Yeah. There was no contest there. Like, it was the most original. Like, there was nobody like it at that point.
No.
Best design, again, I'd rather Gemini win it than Razor win it for the third year in a row. But I'd rather have the awards.
I mean, we are talking about the series where the creature was nominated for best design.
Yeah.
The creature was a beautiful design. It wasn't a very good robot, but you can't deny that it was beautifully designed.
Well, best design is always a strange one.
I can argue with that.
Yeah, it's always strange because they had like Cassius down as the best design in Series 2, which for being a combat robot, yeah, but in terms of aesthetics, it isn't that fantastic. But then you twist the definition. You twist the definition and include the creature in Series 4. I never really understood what best design truly meant, whether it was efficiency, aesthetics, both, or whatever the hell they wanted at the time.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it was clearly always a degree of aesthetics.
Yeah.
Because you had Elvis, Cerberus, the creature.
I mean, I guess Cassius got in as well because it's like it designed the bloody Shroomex, so.
Yeah, even the Wedge was one of the first.
Yeah.
But nah, Razor.
Anyway, so that's enough about the awards. The Celebrity Special is just a farce. It's a one-sided fight with Killatron, and then it breaks down against Deitor. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Very forgettable, gimmicky entrance. All fun was had. And now we move on to the heavyweight version of Gemini. A little bit more of a boost, and the infamous introduction of the wheelie bars.
What to say about the wheelie bars?
Before we discuss the wheelie bars, let's talk about the All-Star fight with Razor. Because this is really the only... Like, it's interesting. I think Team Mace might be the only team, and this is almost certainly wrong, but they fought 3 UK champions in such close proximity. Razor, Tornado, Chaos 2. And arguably Panic Attack, if you want to count the race off. So they seem to just run into them, but the fight with Razor is just a stunning display from Razor. Razor, they grab Gemini, and fully aware of the fact that they're vulnerable from the side, Razor just sort of, it's like a dog with a toy. It just constantly squirms. It's moving, twisting, refusing to let Gemini get that obvious exposed side flip.
Exactly. Well, like I said with Tornado, this is an example of the true top-tier drivers coming through again with Ian and Simon. Andrew Marchant takes one of the twins away, tries to kill it. Razor knows it can't exactly do that, but uses the twin that it crushes down on as a shield. It's just really great improvisation, but it's also why fights with Gemini are always going to be fun to some degree, because as we see later on, even the reactor team had to play it really, really tactically, and it's great stuff to watch and analyse.
I never forget the moment when Razor got the first crush just above the wheel arch.
Oh, the pop noise.
It was perfect. Classic Razor.
See, lads, it can be entertaining.
Lost to Razor, and then we get a victory over Rough Dougal, and then we have 2 fights, one in Extreme, and both of them are lost for the same reason, and it's the infamous wheelie bars. Now, the wheelie bars were designed to prevent Gemini from rearing up and landing on their back. Problem is, the law of physics meant that if they were already on their front and they were trying to self-right with a flip, they didn't make the full degree of motion and they ended up propped up off their wheels. That led to 2 rather unfortunate losses because not only could robots be flipped like they were against Reactor, sometimes they just flipped themselves over into a position that they couldn't get back to, like they did against Napalm.
Well, that's the thing. Gemini is already a small machine on its own, and these are really quite big wheelie bars, so you're already going to have the chance of suspending yourself. But it's the fact that the wheelie bars didn't retract on themselves either. Like
That's what I'd say, they retracted.
Exactly, like Danton Kia. It's just something that it can lean back on. It's like if you have a rocking chair, you can just sit back on it if you need to, use it as a bit of support, and use it when you need it. You don't want a wheelie bar that can literally isolate you in one place, because it doesn't work, as we saw.
Should have been spring-loaded, really.
Just something that gave it a range of motion.
Like Terahertz's linkage.
The fight against Reactor 2 is quite a satisfying fight to watch, because Reactor 2, it does actually flip them both over. They're defeated by their designs, but Reactor 2 does get the kill flips on both of them. And that's a really fun fight to watch. Good form from both, lots of flips, everything like that. Probably a good segue for me to ask, what is everybody's favourite Gemini Mace fight?
One fight from both of the machines each, or just the best fight from Team Mace overall?
You can do one each if you feel strongly about one from each.
Good question.
There aren't any Mace fights that I feel strongly about, that's the thing. So for me, it's Gemini versus Reactor 2. And if I have to pick a win, it's Gemini versus the Creature.
Yeah. The best Mace fight, I'm going to try and put one out there. I'd say the Big Brother one is still a nice fight. And it's a win. So that's something. The best Gemini fight, but they are all good in some way, whether it be to expose Gemini's flaws and make it a good point of analysis, or just being a good quality fight. I can't think of a fight from Gemini that was a complete waste, bar the celebrity special. No, Dietor wasn't great, but even Killatron tries to be a redemption because it flips Matilda over, so there's always something in Gemini fights. I will give the edge to that fight against Razor because it was so close, but you know, there's a lot of good choices here.
I think I will have to also agree with Razor. It was just a fantastic fight, honestly.
Yeah, and it was one where you didn't know that Razor would have the fight from the off either. You knew it could be and would be a really interesting tactical fight, which it proved to be. So
up until the first 10 seconds. But...
Actually, you know what? I take it all back. It's Tornado in the Heat Final. That's my favourite because that's my favourite Tornado fight, hands down. So if it's my favourite Tornado, it has to be my favourite Gemini. So Reactor 2 comes second. Gee, it's a shame they only have 3 wins, and one of them was they only have 4 wins, and one of them they were carried through. So not a whole lot of pickings there. One other thing I want to discuss, I think we'll wrap up in a moment, but one other thing I want to discuss, everyone knows that Gemini was shifted in the rankings in Series 4 so that it could fight Chaos 2. Now, they didn't do it that well because they were going to fight in the second round of the semi-finals, which relied on not only not only Gemini beating Tornado, but it was going to have to fight Really Big Cheese. And this is one of the most impossible to decide possible outcomes. I have no idea who would win between them.
I don't know. Is one of the Gemini twins going to literally go into orbit, or what?
Yeah, that's the thing. In Chaos 2, curb stomps both of them. There's
Yeah, no doubt.
doubt about it whatsoever. But I don't know who wins. Like, they're both invertible. Well, they're both, Wheelie Big Cheese is invertible. Gemini is a bit more, nimble, and would find it easier to attack.
It's the same issue with Wheelie Big Cheese versus Chaos 2. Wheelie Big Cheese is probably the better flipper, more powerful, and it can certainly deal more damage from the fall damage. But Chaos 2 is much more manoeuvrable. When Wheelie Big Cheese turns, it's got the massive flippers to turn around, and often just can't get under anything as a result.
Yeah.
And I think they'll have the same issue with Gemini, but to an even worse degree.
Yeah, I think if I'm trying to judge the fight from a general fight standpoint, I'd back Gemini to, say, win a judge's decision or whatever. But I don't know, I just can't ignore the potential of Wheelie Big Cheese just connecting with one mighty flip at some point. I don't know.
I think there'll be a big one, yeah. I reckon I'm going to go Gemini just.
Because it would be an instant knockout if Gemini went out the arena, but as an actual fight, Gemini's the more suited.
Yeah.
I think with Gemini, it'd either be a judge decision on aggression, or one of them gets knocked out and kills the audience.
Yeah, ends up in row L, as Jonathan Pierce said in Series 7.
Alright, any final thoughts on Team Mace and Gemini? I just want to give a quick shout out to Brian Fountain's YouTube channel, along with Marlon Pritchard. He was one of the only people who had any Robot Wars uploaded in the early 2000s, late 2000s, when we were first getting the wiki off the ground. So big shout out to him. The Mace and Gemini articles benefited tremendously for that. They're still up.
For now.
For now. Any other final thoughts, you guys?
I like them. They are a very essential team to have on the show, especially in the early years, where it's just a team where a lot of the time, you obviously, when you come into the show as a newbie, you look for the inspiration from the big boys. You think, how can I be a Razor, a Chaos 2, a Hypnodisc type thing? But you can imagine that as the designs got better and better, a lot of people would have taken inspiration from robots like Mace. They just think, this is our first design on the show. How can we make it decent and competitive? And a lot of people probably would have looked at something like Mace and thought, yeah, we'll make it compact, we'll make it nice and boxy, it looks simple enough to get down in general as the fundamentals. You could put a viable weapon on it. Just little things like that. And yeah, Mace is like the starter kit of Robot Wars if you want to be a competitive robot without properly pushing the boat out. And that isn't a criticism of it either. As we see, Gemini tried to be expressive and innovative, and it didn't quite work for it. But no, Team Mace in general, really good team. I like them a lot, even though they seem a bit camera shy. And just a little shout out to, was it Brian Fountain who had the massive crush on Philippa Forrester? I can't remember. I might be getting that one wrong out of the two, but I know one of them did. That was quite amusing. Nice little backstory there.
I also want to give a shout out for Mace, Team Mace, for doing something different. It would have been so easy after Series 3 for them to make Mace 3, who was a wedge flipper, like Chaos 2.
Yeah.
It would have been so easy because everyone was doing it. Like, the Big Brother were doing it, Scutterbots would do it, everyone just did that. And Gemini said, you know what, let's do something that's so different, but also keeps to the stand. So you're right, they are an essential team because they were different. They didn't just... Like, think how many semi-finalists faded into obscurity because they started copying others.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Like, Cunning Plan is so much more memorable than Griffin. Not because it didn't... Not because it made a grand final and Griffin didn't, but because Griffin is just a biohazard clone, and Cunning Plan was its own thing. It was a bit different. It was a little bit It was completely different to everybody else in Series 1.
Yeah,
That's what I'm trying to
not that its design was unique, but that it was this funny featherweight wedge. So,
and like, you know, Killatron, they sort of kept their own sort of silliness. They didn't try and become something that they weren't. I mean, Shockwave, even more recently, Shockwave, they didn't just try and make another pusher. They went and made Aftershock, which was a completely different design.
absolutely.
That's the stuff that I like, you know. And you see stuff like that replicated now where Aftershock goes on to great success. Gemini didn't, but, you know, it's the same thought process, and that's what should be really commended.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that, I think we'll wrap up. 57 minutes, nice and brisk. Thanks, Theo, for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
Nick for clearing out his inner ear infection.
Yeah, quick behind the scenes thing here, lads. There was a bit of an hour or two before the podcast. We needed somebody to fill in, and I had a terrible ear infection, but I sorted it out in time. And obviously, you've been blessed by my wonderful comments throughout this podcast.
Donate to Patreon, and Nick will start uploading home remedies for inner ear infections, and you'll see what's happening next.
Yes.